Well, the Senate passed a bill on the fiscal cliff, but does this actually solve the problem? And if the House gives its stamp of approval, what does this mean for the economy? Well, let's ask the Policy Director of Public Notice, Lenwood Brooks. Happy New Year, Lenwood.
Happy New Year. Great to be with you today.
Thank you. So this is a temporary stopgap measure just designed to avert the spending cuts and tax hikes that were going to automatically take place today. And much of it just has to be revisited in 2 months. But some parts of this bill would actually be permanent if the House passes it, such as the tax rates?
That's right. Ever since 2001, when we first passed the Bush tax cuts, our tax code has been temporary. So that's why we had this same discussion 2 years ago. It's why we're having it today. And it's hard to get businesses to grow and invest when the tax code is so uncertain, when you don't know what the income tax rate's going to be. You don't know what the death tax is going to be. So this is one positive thing in the bill. On the spending side, it's a whole different story. So it's a step in the right direction on tax policy. But in terms of spending, it gets us nowhere in the right direction. And in fact, we actually hit our debt ceiling yesterday of $16.4 trillion. So we'll be talking about this for the next 2 months.
Yeah, and as you say, the bill doesn't really have a lot of spending cuts in it. And on balance, you say it actually increases spending. Explain some of the areas where it does that.
Well, the big part of the bill where it increases spending is on the emergency unemployment insurance. So when the recession first hit, Congress decided that for 99 weeks, emergency unemployment insurance would primarily be covered by the federal government. Since the economy is still struggling, they're looking at renewing this. So this is new spending in the bill. There's virtually no spending cuts. But another big thing is the way they got rid of the sequester was by basically raising taxes and tweaking the tax code. And that's something that a lot of the House Republicans probably won't like. But at this point in the game, I think they have to pass it.
Yeah, so some of those tax increases that you were talking about, one of them is this Social Security payroll tax increase. We've had a cut for the past 2 years of 2% in that, and President Obama this year was pushing to let that cut lapse, and indeed the Senate bill allows that cut to lapse, which raises the income tax for people at all levels on the Social Security tax to 6.2%, which adds up to a lot of money for a family making $50,000. It's $1,000 a year. That's a pretty big tax increase, and it hits all income levels.
There's no question the Social Security payroll tax holiday is going to affect folks, but you know, this is a dedicated tax that goes to fund Social Security. When they took the 2% out of Social Security, we were basically funding the program through deficit spending. So if we're concerned about making Social Security solvent, you probably shouldn't be continuing this temporary program for another year when Social Security has plenty of fiscal challenges of its own.
All right, so you support that move to let that lapse?
I think it's a good policy to let the Social Security payroll tax holiday expire because Social Security doesn't need to have money being taken out of it right now.
Okay. So the capital gains tax, it stays the same for people earning less than $400,000 a year for individuals, $450,000 for households, but it goes up to 20% for people above that threshold. And there are people who say, look, every time we raise that capital gains tax, total revenues from capital gains go down because people just cut back on their investments, which just hurts the entire economy. What say you?
Well, you know, this is about legislating, and legislating is about the art of compromise. This is what happens when Congress does wait to the last minute to address a deal. Here we are, January 1, and they're addressing a deal that actually expired last night. So no one wins. You know, not all sides win when you do this. You have to meet somewhere in the middle, and that's what they did here.
Yeah, and you mentioned the debt ceiling. We did hit it yesterday. We do have emergency measures that the Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner put in effect. That's going to put it off for 2 months. But then we're going to be right back here at the bargaining table. You know, our credit rating dropped the last time we had this debt ceiling debate. Are we in trouble in terms of world opinion?
Well, there's no question that we'll probably be back here in 2 months having these same types of discussions. But there's no question our credit rating's, you know, in trouble. And Congress really has to look at the spending side this time. The deal that they agreed to just a few hours ago does nothing for spending. We're still on a trajectory of hitting $22 trillion in deficit by 2017. That matters to Americans because it's going to affect every single American by having higher interest rates. So it's very important that all sides of Congress work together, cooperate, and find a way to cut spending and make the hard choices and lead.
All right, Lenwood Brooks, Public Notice, thank you so much.
Thank you.